If you're running a business and you are not able to actually step away, you don't own that business. That business owns you. This past year, we hit over 150 million in sales. It has nothing to do with me. It is about the system. Create a business that's actually saleable, something that you can actually go on vacation with, because that's the point of owning a business, right? Otherwise, go get a freaking job. I've had zero passion for anything that I've sold in this model. But at the end of the day, let's make a decision here together, and then let's move from this, make it a win-win for everybody. You got to be confident with what you're selling, feel good about what you're selling. There's one skill set that's going to take you far in life. It's how to...
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot has been a huge supporter of the show since day one, and I chose to partner with HubSpot because they support entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. A lot of people that listen to this show are entrepreneurs, and it's hard, and HubSpot creates solutions for entrepreneurs so it's not as difficult. One of the number one problems that all entrepreneurs have is keeping customers happy. It's one thing to acquire customers, keeping them happy, boosting customer satisfaction is a whole other can of worms. It's not easy, but there is an all new service hub from HubSpot, and it makes it infinitely easier to scale customer support and increase customer retention. Remember, the cheapest customer to acquire is a customer you already have. By bringing service and support together in one powerful platform, you can deliver the best experiences for your customers and your teams. You free up time for your reps, focus on complex issues because HubSpot has an AI-powered help desk. You proactively drive retention with customer health scores that keep your business ahead, stopping churn in its track, and give your entire go-to-market team the data they need to operate as one unified, powerful front. Also, you can easily support, strengthen, and grow your customer base. What's the point of acquiring customers if they all just leave? The secret's out. HubSpot's Service Hub is a game changer. Also, you can better connect with your customers and keep them happy. Visit HubSpot.com/service to do more for your customers today. So where did Rylee come from? What's your origin story?
Dude, it's funny because my folks, obviously I had nothing to do with it. They chose my name, but I grew up in a town of like 900 people, and my original spelling was Riley, which is like my great-great-grandmother's maiden name. But the 2 days after I was born, another kid was born, and they named him Rylee. It's like there's 900 people in this town. How are you going to have the same name and spelling? So my folks changed the spelling. So that's how it's Rylee. Not a great story, but it is what it is.
No, a story's a story, man. A story, it's your story. That's what's most important.
Right.
So let's talk about so where'd you come from? What's your background? And actually let's reverse engineer it. What do you do now for people? And then how did you get into that?
Cool. So I mean, are we ripping it right now, bro? Like you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're totally ripping.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, this is it.
I didn't know. Some of these I'm like, hey, give me the whole intro, and then they'd give me a countdown.
This is meant to.
Sounds good, dude.
The less countdown, the less intro, and the more casual, the better the show.
I love it.
In my opinion.
I love it, man. I love it. So, what was the question?
It was just, where'd you come from?
Yeah.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Dakota, and again, like I said, 900 people in that town, and not a lot of good examples to, when I'm looking around of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I looked around and I'm like, shit, there's a lot of things I don't want to do by these examples. So I quickly realized that, again, great people. South Dakota is a wonderful place to be from. There's not a whole lot going on there anymore. So literally the day I graduated high school, I moved up to Minnesota. Not really to come to Minnesota, but it was more so I just got to get out of my environment. And this was the nearest large city, right? So I wasn't going to be a cowboy. And that's pretty much all there is back there. So I wasn't going to be a cowboy. So
and then 900 people, and you want to have a diversity in your job prospects. So it's not cowboy. So you got to make the moves. Okay,
exactly.
So move to Minnesota, right?
Yeah, moved to Minnesota. Really more so because I was going to go to school. I planned on becoming a chiropractor because I thought, well, I guess I'll be a doctor because that's just the mindset you grow up with. Like if you want to make money, well, doctors make money. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And as I was pursuing that, I realized that, a chiropractor, for example, is you can go to school and, go 6 figures in debt, and then you still got to start a business from there. And I was like, why would I do that? Because at that point in time, I had actually been making some decent coin with the company Herbalife. I was a network marketing junkie at an early age.
You were sales and marketing.
Yeah, at an early age, man. And here's the reason why. I took one job. I was 15 years of age. I took a job making pizzas at our small town gas station back in South Dakota. Minimum wage was $5.15 an hour. And I didn't even question that because it's just what I figured everybody made. And I worked an 8-hour shift, and I did the math in my head, and I thought, there's no way in hell I'm doing that again. And so my first day on the job was my last. I quit. And then ultimately I was like, all right, what am I going to do? I got to figure out how to make some money here. And that's when a lot of my family was involved with the company Herbalife. And I was like, all right, cool. I drink the Kool-Aid just like everybody else did, and started to attend these success training seminars, which is that's really, truly, whatever anybody thinks about network marketing, I love it, the industry as a whole, just because it's incredibly, it's positive people. It's just being around like-mindseted people that want more out of life. And so that's really what I truly loved. It wasn't really the product or anything. It was just the culture and the atmosphere that they created. And so that's but really when I first was exposed to personal development, like I didn't realize that I could read books and learn concepts on marketing and sales and
apply them.
Actually apply them. Yeah. And so the thing about that though, man, is because my family was big into it already, I didn't really have like a lot of friends and family to go talk to about this because they were already it's like they had already drank the Kool-Aid, right? Or they hated the Kool-Aid, and they're like, you're never invited to another family function because this is all you try to do and talk about. So I wanted to figure out like how could I get people to call me? And because I hated the concept of put 10 pennies in my left pocket. And I had to go out and talk to people, at least 10 of them, and I would slowly take the pennies over to my right pocket. Like these were the tactics that they, and I'm like, I don't want to go talk to strangers either. So I was like, how do I get people to call me? And at the age of 19, this was what I was like, my first kind of understanding of what marketing and sales actually was, the difference between the two, but most importantly, the continuity that needed to take place between the two in order to provide a smooth sales process, right? Or create an environment in which people just want what you have to offer. And so I came up with a catchy concept from a marketing standpoint and started placing some ads in different local newspapers. I don't know if you ever remember like backpages.com and just like these cheap, free like city pages. And my phone rang off the hook.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, well, I got them to call. Now what? So
was this still for Herbalife at the time?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay. So you basically, instead of doing like the pure outbound, you just figured out a way to market Herbalife like effectively.
Yeah. It was crazy because I was, again, 19. We rented a little space for like an office where I could meet with people. And my phone was ringing off the hook. And I was like, all right, now I have to create like a package. And how do I get them to actually show up to an appointment? And so I'll tell you, the marketing ad that I placed all it said was, we pay you to lose weight, in an 800 number. And my phone rang off the hook. So I got people to call me. It's like, all right, fish on the line. Now how the heck do I get them to show up? And so I put together these little packages and explained how we would pay people per pound and per inch that they would lose, and started to meet with people and was selling anywhere from $100 to $250 packages of these vitamins, and then ultimately getting repeat orders and things. And so the cool thing is I was crushing it. I'm selling over 10 grand a month in these nutritional supplements. The crappy thing is I was working my tail off. And it wasn't something that was like duplicatable, right? And that's really the point of why most people join a network marketing company. It's they bought into the idea of I want to make 1% of 100 people's efforts versus 100% of my own efforts, and so that's what I wanted. And then I'm a year and a half into this thing. It's like, cool, I'm making 6 figures, but I'm working like 17, 18-hour days, and this isn't what I want for my life. And so that's really what I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Do I go to school? Do I not? Like I enjoyed entrepreneurship, and I started to realize I was pretty decent at sales. And from a marketing standpoint, I was learning a lot. And so I jumped around to a number of different sales gigs, and it really went from selling smaller ticket items to larger ticket items, and just to increase the compensation that I had, or the opportunity that I had, because as much as I love the idea of when you're in sales, you kind of earn what you're worth, so to say. It's like if you want to make more money, you go work more. But one thing that I never truly bought into, man, was the fact that a lot of people say that your earning ability is uncapped. And I didn't really buy into that, because granted, the higher ticket products that I was selling, the more money I was making, but there's only a certain amount of time in the day, right? And I can only do so many presentations before I just flat out, I'm exhausted. And so at the age of 24, dude, I was, again, looking at all these different opportunities, had some great highs and, some lows as well. But at this point in time, I'm 24, and I came across an opportunity to open up operations down in Mexico for another, actually, vitamin company, nutritional company. And so I was like, I'm doing it. I'm all in. I leased out my condo here, invested pretty much everything that I have. And it was like, we're going all in. And so my wife actually, my wife at the time, that's a story I got for you, that she moved into my sister's, she moved out into my sister's place, and was really just staying on her couch as I was like, I'm heading to Mexico. And so 5 months into this, man, we're grinded down there, and things were going pretty well. But 5 months into it, the government stepped in and said, you guys can't sell this here, and basically kicked us out of the country. So I found myself on a flight back to the States, like freaking broke. I just invested everything into this thing. And as I'm on my flight back, I realized I had...
Were you like a founder? Were you like...
I would say...
You're a founder in it? Like, is that why you invested so much money?
A founding distributor for them. Okay, it wasn't like... So the company was still operational here in the States, but I was one of 3 distributors that was opening up operations in another country. So we didn't really have like, hey, we were the trailblazers. We're going to go in and figure this thing out. And so there wasn't a lot of financial backing on their end. And so really what happened when I came back to the States, it was like I spent a lot of my money, and I'd leased out my condo. So I was like, shit, I'm homeless too. I don't even have a place to live. I got somebody staying in my 1-bedroom condo. So my wife and I, again, just found myself just sleeping on my sister's couch, and it was like, all right, what am I going to do? And this is kind of my, a few months really just seeking, like, what should I do? Didn't really want to go take a job, but was willing to if I had to, but I just felt like there was more for me. Like there's something new that I can build here. And that was when I came across this concept, or really this first understanding of selling one-to-many, right? To groups of people versus just one-on-one. And it freaking blew my mind, because everything that I had done up to that point, man, I was like selling. We'd sit down and I'd say like, hey dude, I'm Rylee. And then I'd try to take you from, you don't know me, to sign on the dotted line within an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it was. And it rocked me that I went into this room, a gentleman, he had like 20, 24 people in the room, and he did a presentation for like an hour and a half. He asked for an appointment, and he only met with those that wanted to meet with him, right? And then by that point, they were like, well, how much is it? Can I afford it? Or does it make sense? And then he ended up closing some of those. And so I was like, holy cow, dude, if this guy can do that, I'm going to get rich doing this thing. And so I started just to think of like, what could I sell through this model, through this seminar model? And I took a couple of his ideas and added a few of my own. And July of 2011, this would have been, I started my first seminar company, which is now known as the Social Dynamic Selling System. But I didn't even know what I was doing. I thought it was going to be simple to begin with. Like, hey, I'm just going to send an invite out and people are going to show up and they're going to want my products. It wasn't the case, but I thankfully did fail my way through this, made a few sales. But the thing is, I kept just reinvesting back into myself and then into the company. And then by the end of that year, man, so 6 months through July to the end of the year of 2011, I'd done 2.1 million in sales. And from there, it's like, all right, this
2.1 million.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
What's the dude? First of all, congratulations.
Well,
that's insane. And actually, I want to like unpack that a little bit before you keep going, because I think that when you talk about this, like the one-to-many sales pitch, I think the reason why a lot of people do one-to-one is because it's harder to close somebody on a one-to-many for like a high-ticket item, be it like an actual widget or a product or a service or anything. So first of all, what is the product? And then second of all, how did you close $2.1 million worth of that product in this type of format?
Yeah. Dude, this is the funny thing is the product at that time, my first company, it was insulation, LED lighting, and like solar attic ventilators. So we're talking like residential insulation, which to this day, I still do not know what the R means in R value. So this is just kind of funny. I say this because I don't ever want anybody to tell me, because then I can't use that line anymore of what R value is. But the point is that I've made millions of dollars not being not really knowing what that product actually, the ins and outs of it. Okay. But what I did figure out and learn is people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. And it was like, all right, people need that. They may need proper insulation for their home, but do they actually want that? Like in understanding like how to create a message and figuring out why they would make a decision, an emotional decision. And so as I was learning these things, I was literally just taking tons of notes on myself of, okay, when I said this, what did they do? And at the end of every presentation, at the end of every sales appointment, I was just tracking what type of responses that I got. And so as I mentioned, my first one, I made a few sales, call it 10, 12 grand in sales. And I was like, all right, that's enough for me to continue to do marketing for this. And I just kept reinvesting back into it. And so, our average ticket at that time was like $4,500, but all residential, so direct to consumer. And so every week I was in a different town, different market, meeting with homeowners that were looking to make their homes more energy efficient, keep it warmer in the winter, cooler in the summer. And more so speaking about the benefits than about the features, right? So if, the old, people don't buy a drill because they want a drill. They want, a hole in the wall, but they don't even want the hole in the wall. They want the picture hung. And it's even beyond that. Like they don't even, what the heck does a picture hung do? It's more about the feeling that they get, the pride in their home or whatever that is, and being able to speak into that to somebody to take them on that emotional journey to ultimately make that buying decision where really they're not feeling soul.
I'll ask you something too.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly. No, I want to ask something on this point because this happens a lot, and you've done it in the early days with seminar selling, and now people also do this with drop shipping products and whatnot. They're just finding the best possible way to sell a certain product or service or widget. But when you do this, like for example, you're not the product expert in this particular product. So how do you, as an entrepreneur, make sure that you are delivering value? Because that's going to increase the longevity and the lifetime of your business as well. If you sell them stuff that doesn't work and their house isn't warm, then I can guarantee you they're going to be obviously really pissed off, but also not come back for you or refer any friends or really be the strongest marketers for you, which is evangelizing the products. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, certainly morally and ethically, everything, I can safely say I've had zero passion for anything that I've sold in this model, zero. But morally and ethically, you gotta be you gotta be confident with what you're selling, feel good about what you're selling. Cause as you mentioned, like that's just either you're a shady dude, you don't give a rip, which isn't going to last long, or, you really care about that stuff, but it needs to be something that overall is helping somebody. But again, back to just like people don't buy what they need. It's like everybody needs, and everybody needs like good health, but do they want it? Right. So it's like, how do I make them want it? And so knowing that and that's why I can safely say that I haven't had any passion about it for anything that I sell, but my passion is really, truly the vision that I have for my life, being able to take care of my family, being able to take, my wife and daughter, and, fulfill our goals. And if I know what that is, I can look for opportunities as an entrepreneur and always bring my passion with me. right? So I don't care what the product or service is, if it's ultimately for the greater good and it is serving people, which comes back to really just like what I believe sales actually is. You know, one of the root words, the Norwegian root of it was selje, which essentially means to serve. Like, and so people, if you have that mentality going into it, like, I'm here to serve, and you know, maybe my product isn't for you, maybe it is, and we're going to find out in this process. And I'm not going to sell you something that you don't want, right? But we're going to find out. If there's anything that we've been really good at, or what we've really been focused on over the last decade, is we get people to make decisions. And that's the most frustrating thing for most people in sales. It's like the old, I want to think about it, right? It's like, what do you got to think about? You know what I mean? So the decision can be no, but I want to know, so I'm not wasting my time and I can move on to the next person or next prospect. But at the end of the day, let's make a decision here together, and then let's move from this and make it a win-win for everybody.
And that's okay. So that's how you made significant money. You were doing group seminars, so obviously it was selling at scale. Now, how did this business progress into what you're working on now? So this obviously wasn't the last thing that you've built out. You've done many things since then.
Yeah, a lot of things. Because through 2012, it's like, all right, this is good. What I'm selling is obviously helping people. Can we grow this thing? And our tagline really now is we are a sustainable, predictable, but ultimately a scalable selling system. And when I realized that this thing was a system, it was a well-oiled machine, I started just to recruit and hire and kind of step back to work on the business versus in the business. And by the end of that year, I had 26 sales crews across 38 states. And they were, every single week we had seminars going in different markets. Like, you could literally throw a dart at a map and I could find a local venue that would host us. And then I could buy the data and get people to show up to our event. So when I realized that, it was like, all right, what else could we sell through this model? And at the end of the day, this model isn't for everybody. Like, if you have a $48 widget, this isn't the selling system for you, right? With no additional like lifetime value to that customer or prospect. This is a high ticket, sale that will ultimately be able to keep this. When I say sustainable and predictable, like, I want to know if I'm putting 3 quarters in a slot machine and I get $1 back every single time, that's what I'm going to just continually put those quarters in, because I know what that ROI is going to be. So from 2012 to now, it's hard to believe it's freaking 10 years already. I've started eight different companies, completely different industries, from home remodeling, the construction world, to insurance, to medical, cosmetic, financial, real estate syndicates. And every single one of them, we did 7, and a couple of them we actually hit 8 figures within the first year of every single one of those launches, simply because it wasn't about the product or the service, wasn't about even me, it was about the system, right? And it's just like, if it's a plug and play system, if I could just find a product that had a proper ROI, I could market direct to consumer. Okay, this most of the time is direct to consumer versus a B2B model. And then we're ultimately able to create that environment where people just want what we have to offer. So the point of that is again, back to, I don't have any passion for any of those products, but my passion, I loved working with people and being able to show them how to make money, or those that have a great product or a great service, they just don't know how to reach the masses. Like that, then you're not helping anybody. You can have the greatest product in the world, the greatest service in the world, but if nobody knows about it, doesn't matter. Like, if you build it, they do not come. I don't care what that movie has ever said. You got to have a system in place to continually bring leads and sales into your business. Otherwise, it's not even a business, right? So that's when I transition more to consulting, and it's like, all right, if I don't care about these products, what do I really care about? I care about people, and I want to help them make money and achieve the goals and the vision that they have for their family. And so we started to consult and teach people this process. And then through that, man, as crummy as it sounds, I really believe money only makes us more of who we already are. And it's a great magnifier. And when I started to make a lot of it, I realized I wasn't that great of a dude. And hence I said my first wife. Okay. And so I did a lot of stupid things when I started to, have the freedoms that I didn't have before. And, found myself flying all over the country and going in and out, bottle service, whatever it is. And I was just doing a lot of dumb things that I realized I was helping people create wealth, right? And put an incredible system in place, leading them down the exact same path that I realized is not a path that's long-term going to be helpful. And so when I've had that understanding, again, just kind of that feeling of unfulfillment of like, and most entrepreneurs, anybody even in sales, for us, it's like the thrill of the hunt, right? Like even my first marriage, like literally the day that she said, I do, I was like, cha-ching, check the box. Now what? And it sounds terrible because it is, but that was my mindset back then because I wasn't mature enough to really know and I really believe this is why I started one business to the next, to the next, to the next, because it was like, what else, what mountain can I climb today? What can I conquer today? And when I realized even helping people, there was certainly an amount of fulfillment within that, but there was still like just this, is this it? Is this like what I'm supposed to do with my life?
Because you feel like you've achieved you've won the game, right? Like you've achieved the success that you never thought was possible and you set that milestone when you were a kid, and then you did it, and then you do all this shitty stuff that like ruined a marriage and isn't the way that you'd want your kids growing up, and you're like, well, this doesn't seem like successful anymore.
Right, exactly. And I remember this day so clearly. We live in where I'm at right now in Minnesota. And in the summer, it's beautiful here, right? 9 months out of the year, it sucks. But one of those summer days, I was sitting downstairs with my wife and I was just like thinking, again, from the outside looking in, you'd think we've got it all going on, but there was just like this complete feeling of like, is this really it? What, come on, God, like, is this why I'm put on this earth? And I just knew there was something more. And so as I was looking across just like what's out there, like different, I've been a part of so many different masterminds and different coaching programs. And I always thought coaches were full of crap, right? Mostly because those who can't always want to teach, right? It's like, well, look, I mean, I've never seen even a college professor that teaches business or get your MBA. It's like, well, how many businesses have you started? Oh, none. You just teach it. Gotcha. Cool. So I never had any respect, call it that, for most people in that kind of lane. And so as I was looking out, it's like, I don't really want to be a coach. I like to consult, but people need help in these areas because I was living proof of it. But I wanted something that had some foundational like truth to it. And so as I was looking across the whole space, it's like, there's nothing that really I felt was like long-term or kind of a well-rounded approach of who I am. Because there's some, again, I can go teach you how to make money. Cool. I can teach you how to get six-pack abs. Cool. Whatever it is. But is there something that's like, can I operate at a high level? Yeah. And can I operate at a high level in all areas of my life? Like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And have more of this like harmonious type approach to life versus that idea of balance, like work-life balance. When I think of balance, that means one end is not getting attention and the other is. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted like, can I have that type of life where I can actually operate in excellence in all areas and not get burnt out? And I didn't see it out there. So I thought, well, can we create this? And that's really because of the systems that we have in place with our seminar side of things. I'm still involved with that because I love it. I geek out it. Then I go do seminars, at least once a month just to know that I still got it, right? It's like you kind of throw your hat in the ring every now and then, make sure my sales guys know what's up every now and then. But really it was what I've been doing over this last year and a half is focusing on our coaching program, which is called the King's Council. And that's where we teach, again, mostly entrepreneurs, high-level entrepreneurs on business. We have a business mastermind, but not just on business, right? Like we get together on a monthly basis and we mastermind, but also we get together and we talk about nutrition or sleep or relationships. And so it is more of a high level, call it more of like a human optimization type of coaching company that we have that really promotes more of this harmonious concept of how to live excellent in all areas of our life. So that's my passion project, we'll call it now. I ain't making a lot of money with it, right? But my other companies afford me to be able to do what we do with the King's Council.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. Now, HubSpot has an incredible podcast network, the HubSpot Podcast Network. My show, Success Story, is part of it. But if you love great podcasts, you have to listen to Imperfect Action, hosted by Steph Taylor. She cuts to the chase. She dishes out actionable strategies on online marketing, content creation, social media, and more. Steph is your marketing obsessed friend. She's been in the trenches for years. She shares what works and what doesn't, so you skip that costly trial and error. If you crave friendly, educational content that gets results, Imperfect Action is your new favorite podcast. Check out Imperfect Action wherever you get your podcasts.
I think it's also a very important thing, because you're right. I think the things that are not discussed, again, are how to create a life that sort of checks all the boxes across everything, so that you aren't letting your relationship with your spouse, your kids, your parents, your friends fall through just because you're working 17-hour days or whatever it is. I think that that's very important. That's when you start to see mental health issues and burnout and addiction in entrepreneurship, because there's no rule book for it. I can go on YouTube and learn how to run a Facebook ads campaign, or I can go learn how to even raise money from a PE firm, but I can't figure out how to, properly manage a relationship with my wife if I keep blowing off plans that she's made with her friends because I'm working too much. Right?
Absolutely, man.
That's important.
It really is. And what we did, and again, I'm remarried now, very happily married, and have an incredible relationship with my ex because of the growth that we've been able to even experience to the point where I've a 10-year-old daughter, Ellie, was from my first marriage, and it's been incredible to just know that because I've been able to own a lot of my mistakes and walk into that, because at the end of the day, like I want my daughter to know, like, what is it really like to have a marriage of like true, like we're actually in love. Like I want to be that representation, so she knows what that's like, and to even have a husband, to know what type of example. I want to be that example of the husband that she needs to be looking for. And so it's true. Having a kid changes a lot of things in how you look at life, and realize that it ain't always about you. But what are we doing to leave this place a better place, and ultimately then the ultimate legacy. But in order to leave a legacy, I really believe you got to live your legacy full out while you can, and ultimately then you'll be able to actually leave it. So yeah, man, it's.
So I'm just curious. Before I want to go into some of the points you teach over to King's Council and to the people that you're trying to help sort of have mastery of their whole life. But just to cap it off, when over the lifetime of your business, because it's interesting to me, this social dynamic selling system, this one-to-many selling system that you sort of copied and pasted this playbook across multiple industries. What were the revenue numbers that you eventually achieved across all these industries over the lifetime of the business? Because I think that's also very interesting, because I know a lot of people sell direct to consumer, not with this model. So what have you actually been able to achieve with this?
Oh yeah. So we've definitely, this past year, we hit over 150 million in sales. So, and those are just my companies, not the companies that we've consulted with. So, I mean, that number would be, I don't know. I don't even know what that number is. A lot. I should know that actually. But yeah, it's, and again, it has nothing to do with me. I want to make sure that people know that it is about the system. It's like, thankfully, we've been able to figure out how to dial in this system, and it works in all sorts of different industries. So the point of it is that systematization, because if you're running a business and you are not able to actually step away from that business without it, faltering, like you don't own that business. That business owns you, right? Like if you're looking to create a business that's actually saleable, something that you can actually go on vacation with, because that's the point of owning a business, right? Otherwise, go get a freaking job with a lot less stress because that's the point of having something work for you so you can do a lot of the things you love. The funny thing is that running a business is usually what a lot of entrepreneurs love. Like I'm the same way. I still geek out to it. Like, and why I still take on clients from a consulting standpoint is like, I love it when I get a call booked and it's like, they want to discuss if their product is going to work with this system. I'm like licking my chops. I'm like, what's their product? Like, because this is going to be exciting. It's something new. And so, but back to the systematization of it is, we have an insurance agency that is still running. We do seminars on a regular basis because financial advisors, I mean, I didn't invent this concept one to many by any means. It's been around for decades before I ever had the introduction of it. But what we've been able to do is really scale this thing and dial this in to work in so many different verticals and industries, and how to create that sense of urgency, how to craft a presentation to take people on that emotional journey that, again, want what you have to offer, not feel like they're being sold something, because nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy. And so how do we create people and walk them down a path to ultimately make that buying decision? And that's really the point of this that has allowed us to take it from industry to industry to industry, and why I still geek out to it today, because I mean, it's just fun. It's just so fun to help people build their business and achieve their goals. And that's really the fulfilling part on our side of the situation. But yeah, man, it's a 9 figures in revenue to answer your original question. And that's been, just allowed us to, and not even, that's just because of that, it's given me so many other opportunities to invest into and to be a part of so many other companies that, aren't necessarily in that wheelhouse, but more passive type of investments that again, still allowed me to afford the things to do, what we really want to do.
Okay, so then let's talk about your passion project. So I'm curious, you speak about the importance of 5 pillars. That is like the true core, I guess, that you teach over to entrepreneurs. So speak to me about some of those pillars, why they're all important. Actually, before you speak to me about those pillars, I want to understand why you doubled down on God, why you doubled down on that piece of the business, because I also find that interesting. I find entrepreneurs that focus on religion, community, God, there's a reason why, because unfortunately, God is no longer in vogue in the general population. It's not the same place it was. That significance is not there as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, right? So why did you choose to include that as part of your passion project?
Well, I mean, obviously walking through the life that I had, knowing, again, I've made a lot of dumb decisions, and it wasn't ever that I didn't go through a point or have a point in my life of where I didn't believe in God. It was like, yeah, I always believed God was for me and there when I wanted him, right? And it was like, I'm going to do this thing my way, and then maybe at some point I'll dial him up every now and then. And so through that process, it was like, back to that fulfillment side of things, I really had to just take a look at like what really did get me excited about life, and then developing those ultimately core values that I felt were important to me, and then ultimately just knowing like it ain't even about religion, right? Because there's a lot of religions out there, and for me, man, it's about a relationship with my Savior, and doubling down on that is like, why wouldn't I really believe that God's greatest gift to us is life itself, and our greatest gift to him is what we do with it. And I believe we're called to, we're going to be accountable for that, right? So like if we're managing what he's given us and we're taking care of it well, then I mean, that's really what we're called to do. And so where I think a lot of, so when we talk about God, I'm a Christian. I'm a born again believer in Jesus Christ, And like that, I don't have a problem saying that, full well knowing a lot of people out there are already like, even listening to this, they're like, oh boy, here we go. But what I do want to say is that I ain't your normal Christian, right? Or what you maybe even think is a normal Christian, or what I believe is just the Christianity community has gotten a lot of it wrong. And when I look in the Word of God and I'm reading through this here, and then I'm trying to line up what a lot of you mentioned, just religion is taking place, and I'm seeing the differences throughout the Word of God. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And part of that even is, why so many Christians actually even struggle with this idea or concept of making money. They're like, well, if you make money, you must be greedy. You must be a bad person because you're going to do bad things with it. And it's like, well, no. If that's kind of the point, like and this is where I believe the church in itself has gotten a lot of things backwards. And this is why, first off, if you're a true Christian and you're like, you want to show people, oh, God's the way, and you should, accept Christ into your life, like you should have the fruit in your life that people want, right? And when I look around and I even see, the freaking car driving down the road that's got the Jesus fish in the back of the windshield, it's like a 1984 Pinto. Like, I don't want any of that. Like, are you kidding me? Right? So I'm just being real here because I think it's a frustration for me, and even just an understanding that it's never even about the money or the material things that you get, but it's about the disposition of your heart. And I believe Christians should be the most attractive people on the planet. They're not. They're flat out aren't. And then we're wondering why people don't take it seriously or believe that there's actually authority and power in their God when they're running around here, just hoping to get by and praying for their miracle that God's going to take care of them. Yet they're, eating Cheetos and Netflixing and chilling all night. And it's like, we're called to work and make money. It's the Bible tells us many times, about the power of money, power that we give it and that we give over it. But also it says that God gives us the power to create wealth, and that we should actually be doing that if we can steward it well. And so that's where my heart is with it. And it's like, that's what I want to do. And I'm not going to be the dude on the street corner on my soapbox with the bullhorn saying turn or burn. Cause who the hell wants that? Like, I mean, what? I can't imagine that there's ever been one person that's like, you know what? That guy's right. I should go listen to him, right? Like, what are you doing? But I want my life to have the fruit in it that other people want, right? And not from a arrogant type standpoint, but I want to be able to walk this life out in a manner where people can actually truly see that it works, that there's these biblical principles actually work. And if you actually apply them, because I do believe there are true principles that work within the Bible, no different than the law of gravity. There's spiritual laws that apply if you actually see them through, and just so many people don't. So I'll get off my soapbox there on the Christian community, man. But that's really why I've doubled down, because it's not about religion. It's a relationship, and just how incredible my life has been now that I actually have that foundational truth and an understanding of why I do what I do.
And outside the context, outside of Christianity, I think the important thing is holding yourself accountable and removing the selfishness and giving back to people that are in the community. I think that transcends any religious or non-religious community. I think that those are just good things to do.
You bet, man. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to go into, so the 5 pillars that you particularly chose, why are these important? And try and tie them back to somebody who is like a high performance individual, somebody who is trying to build something, an entrepreneur. How do they sort of think through these different things? How do they impact their life? And what are the pillars as well?
Yeah, so the 5 pillars, I mentioned them earlier, but mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and financial. And why I believe these are so important, I kind of equate this back to, we host some events called Become the CEO of Your Life. And why we've called it that was really, I think if we were to approach life like we approach business, like the way a CEO oversees and runs a business, there's, the sales department in business. There's the marketing department. There's HR, right? There's maybe the fulfillment side. There's all these different divisions. And when you're running a business as a CEO, they got to make sure that they're pulling levers and making sure that everything's running at a high level. But if you take that concept and you think, okay, if the company as a whole, if the sales department is struggling, they're not bringing in sales to the company, who as a whole struggles? The entire company, right?
The whole company.
Yeah.
If they don't make money, the lights are
right.
Off. That's
So if sales is crushing it because marketing's doing a good job, but nobody's fulfilling the orders, who struggles? Like the whole company, right? So it's an understanding that everything needs to be operating well in order to have a good, solid business and something that's going to continually create revenue. And so that was my idea or concept with this. Like mentally, if I'm crushing it in business, but mentally and emotionally I'm a freaking train wreck. But financially everything's good, but everybody hates me because I'm a boss and I'm not an actual leader, right? Like eventually that's not going to last long. Okay. Or how many actual CEOs, we'll call it, are crushing it financially, but their health, they're like a walking heart attack, right? Or they're spiritually, they're like, I'm doing this, but I'm not really sure why I'm doing this, which was me for a good chunk of my life. Like I'm doing this because I want I want the jet, I want the Ferrari, I want all these great things, and then still feeling like crap at the end of the day. And so if we can operate in excellence, knowing that one isn't necessarily more important than the other, but they are all important. Okay, your mental health is freaking important. Emotionally, and the difference between mental and emotional, mental would be more of like I can come into a situation and be optimistic. I can be positive. I'm mentally strong. But emotionally, what happens to you when stuff doesn't go your way, right? Like Mike Tyson's like, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And what are you going to do after you get punched in the face? And so how are you on the emotional level to be able to, lead your marriage or lead your family, lead your company the way that you need to? And so everything is for the greater good, but we can't be neglecting one or the other to try to get the other ahead of one, because that's not a sustainable life that anybody wants to live, long term. And so that's the idea behind these 5 pillars. And so we coach people through this process of how to develop their core values and their mission, their vision, their purpose for their life. And then from there, some people come to us and it's like they want to start a business, but they don't know how. So we'll walk them through that. But we're always going to start with these foundational truths of like, why? Like, why do you want to start a business? Number one, I'll tell you, it's a lot of work, right? And you better like have some delayed gratification, right? And so it's understanding that, what's gonna push you through to when emotionally things don't actually go your way, and then ultimately just kind of walking people through that process. So that is the 5 power pillars, man.
No, it's very important. I love like simple frameworks that can have such a meaningful result if they get these things right from the get-go. Because like you said, these things obviously very much apply to entrepreneurs, but they will also apply to entrepreneurs, like people within a company that are just trying to figure out how to excel. Like, again, anybody who is trying to push themselves so that they're doing more or moving up or getting or taking on more responsibility, you have to do these things very gracefully, because if not, there can be a lot of negative in quote unquote succeeding or getting the raise or starting something new. There can be a lot of negative to it as well. So I think that setting yourself up and like your framework, like your cornerstone from like the ground up with these types of spiritual, mental, emotional, financial, physical, I think these are so integral, and I don't think you should ever sacrifice one for another. And I think that I'm going to pull a number out of the air, but I'm sure I'm not that wrong. Like 95% of entrepreneurs definitely sacrifice some of these things for other.
Absolutely, man.
Right?
Yeah. If not more than that, for sure. But that's a good guess.
Like 99%. Like the hustle, like people just, balance is not a thing, because again, the word shouldn't be balance. It should be like integration, especially in an entrepreneurial environment. Like you whatever you're doing is not going to be easy.
I need a better word.
Definitely at the beginning.
Oh, I need a better word than harmony, because I feel like harmony is such a sissy word, man. What help me out here?
Like, I guess you could do like integration. You could do like harmony. I'll think of something.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of it now, but I'll think of something. I'll shoot you a message after.
Anybody listening to this thing, DM into the
If you think of a better word for basically making it so that what you do, how you operate in life, is checking all the boxes, but every single day. There's no. I think like the proper way to say it is like enjoying the journey, but doing the journey properly. Probably.
Absolutely, man. Because so many people will, as you mentioned, just like they're so focused on what they want in the future that they're not present with who they are right now. And so you got to trust the process. Number one, success leaves clues. So if you're looking to start a business, like go find somebody that's already done that type of business and just go be around them, right? It's like that comes back to just find the fruit in people's life that you want. Go freaking be around them. And that's what I've done in every tier of my life. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it was like I want
art, portion, season.
Yeah. It's like I wanted what I found out what I wanted, and I looked for people that had it, and then I just went to them and asked, how'd you do that? And then I'm just gonna follow those steps. And so it is it really back to just the success leaves clues. It's like just you got to be looking for those opportunities, as we talked about, like what an entrepreneur should be doing. Look for those opportunities, bring your passion with you, and just enjoy life. It's way too short, man, to not enjoy what you're doing.
Amen. All right. The other thing that I wanted to go into, which I thought was another interesting point, because we kind of touched on it and we danced around it. What are your particular leadership principles? You mentioned, I think in a lot of the content you put out, steward leadership principles. So there's 4 of them. And why are these the most important leadership principles? We didn't really go into leadership too much, but I know that everything we talked about is kind of a good leadership lesson to take in mind as you grow. But go into these ones in particular.
Yeah, definitely. So when I think about steward leadership, and why I broke it down into steward leadership, because a lot of people think of leadership, they've heard like servant leadership, right? Even in the Christian community, like they say Jesus was that servant type leader, which is completely accurate. But I really think from a stewardship standpoint, which again is one of those words where it's like, what does that even mean? And at the end of the day, I think of stewardship really as management, right? Like if I'm going to steward something well, I got to manage it, and I gotta like understand the responsibility that I need to take, which is one of those principles of, first off, there's ownership. I got to actually take ownership with this role, whether you think you're a leader or not. You're a leader, right? It's just understanding if you're going to step into that role and own the role that you're in. Okay, whether you're in a job or if you're a husband, right, or if you're a wife, you're a leader. Okay, you're leading somebody at some point throughout your life. So owning that role, taking it seriously, and then understanding that, to manage something doesn't mean to just keep it in order. Like if you have a money manager, you give that money to somebody with the full expectation that they're going to make more of it, right? Like they're managing it. And that's the same thing. That's a biblical principle that we were called to manage and do more. We're to go forth to multiply what we've actually been given. And so taking that seriously is really the concept of what steward leadership actually is. There's ownership, responsibility, the accountability that, we all have. We're going to be accountable at some point with the things that we've been given. And then ultimately just the idea that there is a reward that we will receive at one point. And so whether it's, the earthly reward of, hey, I'm going to lead these employees well, or lead my sales guys well in order to make money on this business endeavor, or whatever it is, but there is a reward that's actually due at the end of the day. And more so knowing that through that understanding of what steward leadership is, there is a servant component to it, right? And leading by example, having that influence in people's life, but going about it in a manner that of stewarding it well, taking it seriously, and being willing to have that responsibility and accountability is really what we coach on, and how I lead, all of my companies, but why we teach people to lead in that manner as well. Because people want a leader that's not always right? People don't want to just follow somebody that's always right, but somebody that's always real, and going to be able to lead appropriately and be able to say, yeah, I got that one wrong, right? But knowing that's okay. But we're gonna lead this thing together, or we're running this race together, and that's just, again, really the idea or concept behind steward leadership versus anything else.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on, so I want to do this. I want to do one more question, just a little bit more on sales and influence. I think that's interesting because you've done it for your entire career, and that's also what you teach over. Then I want to go into just some rapid fire questions to close it out, just to pull out some insights from your life. Yeah. So I thought, you've taught over sales quite a bit. So I'm curious as to what your advice would be for an entrepreneur that is trying to sell, to influence. How do you do it? Because you mentioned this a few times, and I didn't really go into it when you mentioned it, but I think it's a good point to close off on. So you now built a selling system, but you are very purposeful about how you sell, and not to manipulate, not to get people things they don't need. So what is your advice for somebody that's trying to learn how to sell?
Learn how to communicate. Because at the end of the day, communication is, if there's one skill set that's going to take you far in life, it's how to communicate effectively. If you're married or want to ever be married or have that marriage last, learn how to communicate, right? It's like, I think most divorces they say that finances is like the number one reason that they get divorced. Well, no, it's the fact that they didn't communicate about finances why people get divorced. Right? Because if finances was the real problem, then that's not the problem. It's just understanding, did they have a game plan? Did they communicate about it appropriately? Not to go on that tangent, but that is what I've learned. But I've used those skill set to lead organizations and to ultimately teach sales principles as well. Because how we say anything is it's actually more important than what we actually say. Right? From a sales standpoint, I have a book I wrote called Intentional Influence that is, I go into a lot of these different sales principles, but one of them being of when we're communicating in any given situation, the words that we speak really only make up like 7% of what's actually communicated. 7%. Okay, so that means there's 93% that people are receiving in a manner where it's more about the tonality that we use, right? And the overall physiology, the body language that we have. So especially when you're selling to a group of people, it's a totally different dynamic than when I'm selling one-on-one. And so we want to make sure, and here's a prime example, just to go back to the 7% is the words, 38% is the tonality that we use. And then I believe it's like 53% is the actual physiology or body language that we have. So I think that equates to 100. It's right around those numbers. I don't know. Get the book.
Almost there. I can't do that math in my head.
But the real point is if anybody's got a text from their spouse or significant other that it's like you ask a question or you say what you're going to do, and if you've ever just got the word K or the letter K back, right? It's like, is that like a good K, or why is there an okay? And then we start to put tone on it and go down this rabbit trail of like, well, why, is she mad at me? I don't really know. And then all of a sudden she was just in a hurry and she just had to put K real quick. It wasn't, what she said wasn't.
There was nothing there. You just read into it.
Exactly. So those are what's just so important when communicating effectively, and why I freaking hate text. So even with our sales guys, when we're communicating, it's like I use an app called Voxer. Like I'm gonna physically talk into it, and even this, like why I do most of my interviews like this, I do standing up, because you can feel it, you can hear the voice inflections that I have based upon the stories that I would tell, because it's impactful versus just somebody that's going to come up here and say words for, what I mean? It's just like, that it's so important when
there's an energy to it.
creating that environment.
There's more to it. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's really what we teach from a sales standpoint is how to influence, how to communicate effectively, because that you can do. If you can do that, it doesn't matter what the product or service is, right? I'm proof of that. Our system is proof of that, assuming it's good, right? You want to make sure you're providing a good product or service, but then if you can communicate effectively, you'll be able to do anything, whether you're a stay-at-home dad or a IT person or CEO.
Anybody can learn effectively how to be a salesperson at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay. And then so I'm going to pivot to rapid fire. But just to close out, any other, closing thoughts on what you hope to accomplish, what you hope to teach over, what you hope to inspire people to do? Like when your time on earth is gone, what do you want people to say about you and your work?
Oh, to say about me, I would say that back to the living that legacy, to leave that legacy. That's really what I want them to say, that I led by example, and the fruit in my life actually was what proved that. And so because I anytime that I seeked out a mentor in my life, it was great because they had that particular fruit that I wanted. And then when I got close to them and maybe peeled back the hood a little bit and realized that that wasn't what I thought. That's not what social media said, right? It's not like that was the picture that I painted. And I'm like, okay, this guy's a freaking train wreck, or this woman is not what I thought. And so I never want that to be the case of what people experience with me. Like what you see is pretty much what you get, and whether you like it or not, that's the fruit that I got. And so that's ultimately just creating that environment where where people are, number one, feel loved and accepted, and just want to do life together and ultimately that's what we coach in our program, and what we're teaching, the philosophies that we teach that are going to be passed down to Ellie, my daughter, and ultimately just that she is the fruit or one of the pieces of fruit ultimately that I had actually lived on this earth. So how's that?
I love that. It's amazing. Where do people connect with you? Your social, your website, all that?
Yeah, so I've got a podcast called the King's Council Podcast. If you're listening to podcasts, I imagine most of your listeners listen to podcasts, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
The King's Council Podcast is we've got new content every week on there, man, or YouTube. You can find that on there too, but that would be the best spot.
King's Council Podcast. What's a social handle for you to, like, a Twitter, Instagram? What's
Instagram? So the Rylee Meek, and as you know, Rylee is spelled a little different than most people, but
RYLEEMEEK. So the Rylee Meek. Perfect. Okay, let's do a couple rapid fire to close this out. Biggest challenge you've overcome in your personal or professional life? What was it? How'd you overcome it? What'd you learn from it?
I would say biggest challenge. Jeez. My folks got divorced when I was 5. And I would say I'm going to go with that, just really because it wasn't something that, I had any control over, but it was something that I felt like I had to navigate. I really think it was my first understanding of what sales and marketing was. And how to, when I was with one parent versus when I was with the other, I had to navigate through a lot of that and without trying to without wanting one parent to feel like I loved one or the other. And like, as for a 5-year-old, it sucked. I mean, I vowed to myself, and this is why I struggled so much with my divorce, was I made that vow to myself at a young age that I was never going to put my child through that. And, I did. I actually did do that. And so it was very hard for me to swallow that, but, learn through that process of what I really wanted Ellie to learn and know what a true relationship should look like versus what her and or her mommy and I had prior to. And so I'll go with that, man. How about that for the biggest challenge?
That's amazing. That's not an easy one either. Okay, next question. If you had to pick one person, obviously there's been many, but pick one person who's had an incredible impact on your life. Who was it, and what did they teach you?
I would say my stepdad. And mainly because he had raised me really from when I was like 8 years old through 13, which is really a prime age in my life. I spent a lot of time with him. I ultimately still went to live with my dad, and but during that time my stepdad was the guy who had a business and was an example that I could do whatever I wanted. Like it allowed me to really open up my eyes and see that there was more to life than just working a 9-to-5 job, and that I could actually go and do and accomplish more than just what I saw in my small little community in South Dakota.
If you had to pick a book or a podcast, something that's had an impact on your life, what was it?
A book would be The Science of Success. James Arthur Ray was one of a book I read when I was like 18. It freaking rocked me. I think the guy might be in prison now, but so he's a little out there in some of his concepts, but like from a spiritual standpoint. But you could take a lot of what he taught through his book. I grabbed a hold of it right away, which I think is just was allowed me to open my mind a little bit different, and that there actually is a science to success. It starts with our mindset, and that's one that really had a huge impact on me growing up.
If you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Trust the process. Trust the process.
And then last question, what does success mean to you?
Success. So I will say I've actually thought a lot about this, and I used to think success was I want to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want, how I want. Like that was like why I freaking ran towards money and business and tried to acquire wealth. But at the end of the day, I really believe success is understanding why you were created and finding what that purpose is, and then pursuing it until the day you die. And because there's nothing more frustrating than experiencing quote unquote success that's not your actual purpose. And I'm living proof of that. And so if you can find that purpose and understand what that really truly means to you personally, individually, because mine is different than yours, Scott, or any other listeners on here, where we all have our own drive and purpose, reason why we were created on this earth, right? And God knew that you needed to be on this earth for a specific reason, and you are the only one that could actually do it. Otherwise, why would you be here? And really truly understanding that, and it's not even actually acquiring it or achieving it, but it's walking that purpose out until the day you die.